All right, everyone, I want to welcome each and every one of you for being here tonight. I'm Roderick Martin, and you have arrived to Extraterrestrial Evidence. And tonight we have a great guest for you today. And I think it's something that we all would like to get a little more information on, because at the end of the day, we always want to know, are we alone? Are we here by ourselves? And better yet, our guest tonight is going to share some of those things with you. I mean, she's even written a book called Meet the Hybrids: The Lives and Missions of the ET Ambassadors on Earth. And we can go into detail in how this book was written in her story. But most important, we always tell you, you could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be right here, right now. And with that being said, Tiffany and I is going to serve you. As you know, Tiffany is the greatest admin of all time. And so, hey, why not have some of these people here? And then we got some of our other people in the audience that are regulars, and can't wait to bring them up when the time comes. But in the meantime, you want to ping some people, get a pen and paper out, even just sit back and listen to this particular story tonight, because I think it's important, especially with the direction and disclosure and the things that we're going, to know that there's more than meet the eye. And who's better yet with Barbara. You know, Barbara is a licensed psychotherapist. She's a certified hypnotherapist. She's also a regression therapist. So for those of you who are dealing with experiences, she'll be the one that you will talk to. So without further ado, we're going to bring Barbara up. How you doing today, Barbara?
Fine. I'm happy to be with you.
All right. So first, I'm just gonna to ask a couple of questions, and then I want you to just open it up. One of the things I want to say is that it's been a pleasure just talking with you. You and I talk offline a lot, and just learning a lot from you. You've been around this a long time. I know one of my favorite topics we're not talking about tonight is crop circles. But again, I want to thank you for sending me those books and autographing them, and the personalized message, and just, you know, again, I just smile about that. But, you know, one thing that I think that, you know, when it comes down to hybrids, it's one of those conversations that, in my case, personally, it's one of those things you just really put your ear to, you know, because you're like, wow, because I've never seen an hybrid walking around, and I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube where, you know, there's some reptilian eyes or something came out while they was playing a sport, and you can't really tell if it was all video CGI or anything. But I know you're going to have some more details, and that's just something I want to hear. And also, you know, what do we do? You know, do we meet hybrids in everyday lives and we just don't know it? But at the same time, what effect would it have when people know, you know, exactly who these people are? And then there's people that do claim that they are hybrids, and I don't think the world seems to kind of stop turning for it, or do people believe it? But at the same time, it's just one of those conversations. What about you, Tiffany, before we get started here?
Oh, you know me, Roderick. If I don't have it in front of me, it's not entering. So I'm just kind of, I guess, here to listen and here to take in all the information. Like I said, I was reading through the Meet the Hybrids book, and I find it very interesting. So I'm here to absorb tonight.
All right. Well, Barbara, wherever you want to begin, if you just want to at least just start with the basics of what is a hybrid, you know, and we'll go there.
Okay. Well, I would like to put this in the context of the whole extraterrestrial reality, first of all. And I began to be very involved in the extraterrestrial reality back in 1991. When I had my first client come to me who was very traumatized and disturbed in every possible way because she was being visited by unusual beings that were definitely not human, very often in her room at night and taken away for a while. And anyway, poor young woman just having a really terrible time with it. And her mother met me and asked me to please work with her daughter, which I did for 7 different sessions. And we did 6 regressions, each one to a different separate extraterrestrial encounter. And she found during those regressions that no matter how terrified she had been at the beginning of seeing these beings in her room, or one time even in the shower, there was one right outside of the shower door, that no matter how frightening that was, she found out in the regressions that these very strange, unusual beings were actually, for the most part, helping her. In fact, she had been healed twice, once of a very bad ear infection, and 3 beings came and healed her right there in her bed in her own room, with her kind of looking out of the corner of her eye and seeing 3 very tall, white, very thin beings. And she could feel them doing something in her ear. And then she went back to sleep or out of consciousness and woke up the next morning with her ear completely healed and free of pain. And she had also had another incident where she was healed in her lower back, where she had had a couple of years of pain, and healed by a blue beam of light. So at the next session, when she came in, she said, "I want you to know that I feel privileged, honored to be chosen by these unusual beings, because they have been really helping me." And she also woke up one morning sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall of her room, and holding a very strange looking baby that was a hybrid baby, part extraterrestrial and part her. So that was my first client for this reason, back in 1991. And even in that first person I worked with, I became acquainted with the idea that some people are having hybrid babies. Well, I went on with the rest of the work with her and with more than 2,000 other people since then that I've done regression work with. And out of all of that work, it's really come to my attention more and more that some of the species of extraterrestrials, and there are many different species, some of them conduct a hybridization program. And that means that they create babies that are part human and part extraterrestrial, whatever their particular race is. So I'd like to talk, first of all, about the hybrids that are born on the ship. I'll explain that in a minute. And who live their whole lives with the other beings, the extraterrestrial beings who have helped to create them. And it seems like they live the rest of their lives on the ships or perhaps on the planet of those original beings. So that's the first type of human that I was learning about for many years. And I'd like to say more about that, these hybrids who are living on the ships. Well, first of all, the extraterrestrials, again, some species of them, not all, but some of these species come to Earth briefly, and they take a woman on board, or could even be a girl who is just starting to physically mature. So it could be as young as 12, 13, 11, something like that. And anyway, they'll take the human female on board the ship and remove some of her eggs from her ovaries and then bring her back. She usually is not even aware of this at all. And then they also take sperm from a human male. If the woman is married, it's probably the sperm from her husband. If she's a teenager and not married, the sperm might come from some other male whom she might know or not know, who is also taken on board for this particular reason. So anyway, then the extraterrestrial beings combine the eggs from the ovary and the sperm from the men, human, both, and they combine it with their genetics, with extraterrestrial reproductive material. In other words, it's like they make a little embryo out of that combination of material. And sometimes it might involve more than one species of extraterrestrial that they add their genetics to this mixture. And then they take the woman another time and implant this new little embryo, hybridized embryo, into the woman for her to gestate it. And she is returned to Earth and goes on about her life, usually not even knowing that any of this has happened. So she will find herself gradually feeling pregnant, have all the signs and symbols of being pregnant. And she might even go to a doctor. Usually she would. And the doctor will examine her and maybe do an ultrasound and declare that, yes, indeed, she is pregnant. Now, some of these women are not married or haven't even been with a man for a long time. So it's extremely puzzling about why they're pregnant. And some women are married and having regular relations with their husbands. So it's a surprise maybe that she's pregnant, but it's not out of the question. I mean, they're having regular activity. Anyway, whether she's expecting it or surprised or not, it is happening. She really is pregnant. And that goes on usually for a couple of months, maybe 2.5 months, usually before 3. And then she is taken again by the extraterrestrials, the same ones, and they remove that embryo from her. She's returned home, goes on with her life, and suddenly feels, wow, I don't think I'm pregnant anymore. And all the symptoms that she had go away. And if she goes to a doctor again, which often happens, the doctor will say, well, I don't know what happened, but you're not pregnant anymore. You were, but it's right here in the record, but you're not. And then the doctor will often say, when did you have a miscarriage? And she'll say, I didn't. I would have noticed that. That's painful. No, I never had one. And he'll say, well, when did you have an abortion? And she'll say, I didn't have an abortion. I would certainly remember that. So it's a great mystery. And doctors will then often say, well, sometimes an embryo will pull away from the wall of the uterus and just get absorbed into the rest of the woman's system. Anyway, I don't know whether that's really true, but that's the reason or the excuse given by many human doctors. Now, in the meantime, this little embryo has been taken and put into a gestation tank on board the spaceship and gestated for 7, 8, or whatever months. And this is in a glass sort of tank. So the fetus is observed floating in fluid in the tank. And so the extraterrestrials who are functioning in that nursery on board, they really keep track of these embryos that have been taken from people, so half women, half extraterrestrial. And then at a certain point of the fetus's development, it looks like they're ready to be born, and the fetus will be taken out of the tank and quote unquote born, and then wrapped in swaddling clothes and put into an incubator-like shelf on a wall. Sometimes the women who have contributed their eggs or whose eggs have been taken during that gestation period of the fetus will be taken and they will observe the growing fetus in this glass tank. And then sometimes they're taken to visit the newborn baby, hybrid baby, on the ship. And women react to different ways about that. That is, different women have different reactions. Some have a lot of maternal nature in them. And even though the baby looks quite strange from our human point of view, it still is a baby, sort of human. And so they will feel love and affection for the baby, and they'll want to hold the baby and nurture it and give it love. And some other human women for whom this has happened, they are just really turned off about having a baby here on a spaceship with these unusual beings standing around. And they may be really turned off by the look of the baby, because the baby usually has a somewhat bigger head in proportion, and definitely bigger eyes and smaller other facial features. And they're usually quite spindly too, spindly and thin and sort of wispy looking. So some of these women have to be really urged, almost forced, to hold and nurture the baby. But the ones who do take to it in a friendly, motherly way, they are often repeatedly taken every now and then through the next several years to visit the child, their own hybrid child, as the child is growing up. And so some women may have a visit like at age 1 of the child, and age 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., all through the childhood and even through all the teenage years. And some of the mothers even see that grown-up hybrid child when they are adult. And so, again, different women have different feelings about these children. Some of the women I know and have worked with in regressions know that they have 5 or 6 children, and other women whom I know have been told by psychics and by entities like Bashar, who channels through Daryl Anka. Some of these women have been told that they have 20 hybrid children, or one woman I know has been told that she has 36 hybrid children. And, you know, she had not really been aware of the process of this, except that she had very, what she considered irregular menstrual periods. So in other words, it was fairly common for her now and then to skip 2 months or so. And she never thought that she was pregnant or that any of this was going on, because she just assumed, oh yeah, I'm just one of those people who has very irregular periods and skips a couple of months here and there. And that's what her doctors affirmed too, because they didn't know about this hybridization going on. So men who have had their sperm taken for these mixtures, they often are taken also to visit the child once the child is born on the ship, not so much to see them developing as a fetus, as far as I know, from the men I know who this has happened to. So anyway, that's the process of how they are created. And so at that first phase of creating that hybrid, the hybrid is 50% extraterrestrial and 50% human. Now, that hybrid is not human enough to live here on Earth and has to remain there with the other beings on the ship. But then if that hybrid, half human, half ET, connects with, either mates with, or his material is mixed with another human, that offspring is 2/3 human, 1/3 extraterrestrial. And then if that goes on for another generation, you see it's becoming more and more human. Now, as far as I know, even that third or fourth generation hybrid does not live on Earth. Maybe they do, and I am not aware of it. But there is another kind of hybrid. I consider it the other main kind of hybrid that I want to talk about, and those whom I have personally known, who are regular human beings who have been hybridized. So that means that they are born on Earth from a regular mother and father, like the rest of us are, and they come out into the world being born looking perfectly human, and they continue their lives looking human for the most part. There might be a couple of little differences that could be detected if you really look for them, but pretty much they spend their whole lives on Earth as humans and being accepted as humans. And there's a really important reason for this. So these hybrids living on Earth were created as hybrids in most cases before they were born. And one of the common ways for them to be created is that sperm is taken from the father, eggs taken from the mother, combined by the ETs in like a little petri dish sort of thing, combined on board the ship with some of their genetics. And with the hybrids I know, there were a few different species of extraterrestrials that contributed their genetics to this mixture. So in other words, they make an embryo and then they plant it in the human mother, who then, of course, becomes pregnant and carries the baby full term and gives birth to that baby, having been hybridized, gives birth the regular way that we normally do. And they consider that baby, they've had no other thoughts to lead them otherwise, they consider that baby their baby and fully human. Another way that it can happen, this hybridization, is that the mother is already pregnant from the father in regular human way. We all do it. And then along about the 5th month of pregnancy, the mother is taken on board the craft and an ET injects her through her abdomen and through the wall of the uterus into the fetus growing inside. So in other words, the fetus is being injected with a combination of extraterrestrial genetics. So that fetus is then hybridized. And then the rest of the pregnancy goes on, and that baby is born and continues to have their whole life here on the earth. So these humans are the ones that I have wrote about, these hybrids, in the book Meet the Hybrids by myself and Miguel Mendonça, a wonderful writer and researcher from England. And in order to write the book, we interviewed 9 actual ET human hybrids living here amongst us perfectly well on Earth. I found some of the hybrids, people I had gradually met over a few years, and he found a couple of hybrids in England, and we interviewed them at great length over Skype because they were all far away from where both of us lived. And we had long interviews, and then a second round and often a third round of long interviews with them. They are truly wonderful excellent people whom you would all be very, very pleased to know. They all look entirely human. Only one of them, a woman named Cynthia Crawford, who unfortunately is no longer with us. She died about 2 years ago. But anyway, she was the only one who looked different. In fact, the way that I became aware that there were hybrids living on Earth, and this was in the early 2000s. I had never heard of this before, but I was at a conference fixing myself a sandwich for lunch in a kiosk that was in the hallway of that conference. And I was reaching for the mayonnaise, and somebody else was reaching sort of over me to get the mustard or whatever. And I looked around to see who was there. And I saw this woman with blonde hair and really big, beautiful eyes. And I did a double take at seeing these eyes. They were extraordinary. I mean, they looked very human. They weren't all black or anything. They had whites around the pupil, but they really were bigger than any eyes I had ever seen, and very beautiful too. So I sort of did a double take, and she said, "What? Like, why are you looking at me like that?" And I said, "Well, I hope you don't mind my saying this, but you remind me of a hybrid." And she smiled and she said, "I am a hybrid." So I got to know her after that, very interested that there are hybrids living on Earth. A couple of years later, at another International UFO Congress, a friend I know brought over somebody to meet me. And this was a woman. And when I looked at her, never having seen her before, I immediately thought and said, "You remind me of a mantis being." And she looked forward and she said, "Good for you. I am a mantis being. I am from planet Estegan." So fortunately, it was just about lunchtime at that conference. And I said, "Could we have lunch together and a nice talk about this?" Which we did. And I got to know her very well. And she came to eventually stay with me for a whole week. And I got to know about her and her characteristics, her qualities of being a hybrid. And after a couple of days with her, I felt totally convinced that she had characteristics that most of us don't have. And I believe that, yes, indeed, she is a hybrid. So out of these interviews with these various people, we did write the book, Meet the Hybrids. And I will tell you some of the characteristics tonight that some of these people have who are hybrids. Well, first of all, when they were first aware as infants or toddlers, first really aware of themselves, and they always felt different than the rest of the people around them. And that feeling has persisted in their entire lives, that feeling of being the same as we humans in many ways, and yet substantially different. They all felt, as soon as they were old enough to feel such a thing, that they were not really from here, that their earth parents weren't their real parents, even though those parents, of course, always insisted that they were. And they always felt that their home was somehow way out there in space. And they would often, as young children, look up in the sky and talk to their families, their real parents out there and say, oh, please, why am I here? Why aren't I with you? Please come for me. And they also have had a lifetime of very frequent visits from those extraterrestrials whose genetics they have. So in all of these hybrids whom I personally know, they have at least 4 different species of genetics in them, sometimes as many as 6 or 7 or 8 all combined in them. And therefore, they have visits from time to time with each one of those kinds of species. Sometimes those species are working together on the spaceships. And so they'll see all of them together on the same trip to the spaceship. Sometimes those beings do not live and work together, and so they'll go to different ships with different species and visit them. And often they're visited by these ETs in their own homes, which they totally welcome. It's very different than what you hear from many people about abductions, where people are frightened and terrified with these unusual beings coming into their homes. These hybrids welcome and treasure the visits from these people. And of course, that's partly because they have some of the genetics. They're partly that type of species themselves. So then these people, these hybrids who live on Earth, have special abilities. From their earliest days, they're always very psychic. They're so much more psychic than anybody in their family or anybody they ever eventually meet. That's one of the reasons why they feel different. So they have a full range of psychic abilities. They have telepathy, which nobody else around them has. It can be very disconcerting for adults when one of these hybrid children says, oh, I know what you're thinking, and tell them what they're thinking, and it's accurate, or what they're feeling, and they can see auras. They can get a reading on what the condition of another person's body is. They certainly can detect illnesses or anything going wrong in the other person's body. And some of them have real medical intuitive abilities. Some of them don't have that ability so much. So anyway, they have telepathy. They can move things with their minds. They can lift things with their minds. They can levitate. They can transport themselves a bit through the air, a bit off the floor, if they choose to do that. They really have wonderful, wonderful skills, and very specially, they all have the ability to physically heal other people or other animals, and do a lot of that just in the natural course of life. And they have that ability from the ET portion of themselves, because a lot of the healing species or ET species are wonderful healers. So they pass along that characteristic to these hybrid children. So anyway, they feel different than all the other children, and very often they feel a problem with the density on Earth, the dense vibrations, which the rest of us, of course, are totally accustomed to. But they have a problem with that. And some of them have slight different physical characteristics too. For instance, one woman has thumbs that are quite wide at the end, at the tips, and her fingers too, but mostly her thumbs. But that turned out to be very handy because she turned out to do a lot of sculpture work. So those rounded ends of the thumbs really helped her in molding the clay into the proper shapes. Another woman had a very unusual blood type that the doctors did not recognize from any other humans' blood types. Another woman had, or one of the men hybrids had one of the organs, which is usually lower in the abdomen. That organ was up there in his chest, functioning, but totally out of place. Another woman had a different bone consistency. Another had different muscular system. The muscles in that woman were very weak, so weak that even in childhood, her doctors advised her never to go out for sports and never to climb the jungle gyms like the other children did, just to be very quiet and sit and read during recess, because she would really wear out her very weak muscles. So those are some of the different characteristics, and yet they all have this wonderful range of healing skills and psychic skills as well. So you can imagine, being different in some of those ways and yet looking perfectly human. It was a puzzling life to many of these children, and many of them did not learn that the reason that they were so different is because, well, they didn't learn that they were hybrids and therefore different until, in some cases, late in their teen years or even in their adult years. In fact, Cynthia Crawford didn't learn about her hybridization until she was age 35. And in that particular case, her father took her aside when he knew that he was not going to be living on this earth too much longer. He took her aside and said, I think you need to know how you came into being. He said, I was part of a very secret program with a portion of our government, and we were experimenting to see if we could successfully create a hybrid being from the material we had, the DNA that we had from an extraterrestrial here on Earth, probably from one of the many UFO crashes. I don't know where they actually got that ET body. So anyway, they did the secret program, and they used the DNA from one of these extraterrestrial bodies they had here on Earth, combined that with eggs from the mother and sperm from him, the father. And to get the eggs from the mother, the father, the husband, actually gave her a drug one night so that she would not be aware of being abducted by humans, not ETs, humans in the dead of night, humans in this secret program. So her eggs and his sperm were combined with DNA from that extraterrestrial here on Earth in a secret location. And that embryo was given to the mother, and that was grown full term, and that hybrid was born as Cynthia. So Cynthia had so many clues about her being substantially different, even different from her human twin sister. There were so many differences. Nobody would have ever thought they were sisters, let alone twins. And And then she was relieved to find out that she was a hybrid, because she had been having these wonderful visits with her her extraterrestrial creators. But the one thing that she didn't like about the whole thing was that she was considered by these people to be a human ET experiment. She was considered to be an experiment. Well, it turned out that she was a very successful experiment, because here she was, hybrid, and having all these visits with her hybrid beings, and lived a really very fine life, helping other hybrids and helping other people who were having ET experiences, and doing sculptures. She did hundreds of lovely sculptures of the beings whose genetics she had. And these beings would telepathically channel through her. They would direct her hands. She was the one with the bigger ends of her thumbs. They would direct her to create in these sculptures the perfect likeness of them as the kinds of beings that they were. So she actually met other beings through that resource, and she did sculptures of at least 20 different types of extraterrestrial beings through this channeled direction of how to do their likeness. And that means that she had about 7 different types of extraterrestrial genetics in her, and then she met many other types through those beings, got to know them, and they said, yes, please let people on Earth know about us too by doing the sculptures of us. So that's been a wonderful gift to humanity that she has done. So these people are living a life with one main motivation, and that is to raise the consciousness of humanity. And they are doing this in many different ways, each of these hybrids. They're all teaching classes. They're all holding workshops, again, to raise our frequency, for one thing, and to raise our consciousness, to help us to be more spiritually developed. And one of their functions is to help whomever they will know in their lifetimes to know about the huge number of extraterrestrial species that there are out there in space, many of whom come here and have things to do with humans, many of whom never come here, maybe don't even know about planet Earth, but they consider themselves bridges between humans and extraterrestrials. And they're very pleased to be that bridge, that connecting link. So they all do a lot of educating about these other beings. Some of them give lectures, some of them give interviews, some of them write books, some of them write articles. So they really are trying to get the word out to a broader audience. Some of these hybrids also have special abilities like animal communications, and do a lot of communicating with animals. They even have appointments with people who call in or write in and say, oh, my dog seems so sad these days. Can you possibly communicate with my dog and and find out what's going on and tell me so that I can help my dog. And so one of these hybrid women named Jacqueline Smith is very, very developed in doing the animal communication and has really helped a lot of animals and a lot of owners of animals. So she'll walk through the park and a squirrel will walk across her path and she'll communicate with the squirrel, and knowing where the squirrel is going to and what the squirrel is about to do. And if the squirrel has any complaints or problems, he'll mention them to Jacqueline. She's commuted with reptiles, with snakes, and with turtles, with birds, with many, many different kinds of animals, even remotely, like with people who call and ask about their pets. So she's an animal psychic, really, as well as an animal communicator. And this particular hybrid, Jacqueline Smith, also does a wonderful process, which she did for me several years ago. And that was what she calls giving a star origin reading. And that means that psychically, intuitively, she can look at the person, even through a photograph or on Zoom or Skype, which we did, and she can tell the kind of lineage that one of us has had for eons of time. In other words, we've all, no doubt, had plenty of human lifetimes here on Earth. And many of us, maybe all of us, have even before that, or interspersed with human lifetimes that we've had groupings of lifetimes as other extraterrestrial beings. In other words, we might have 8 lifetimes as a tall white Zeta being, and might have another 6 or 7, 8 lifetimes as a mantis being, and another grouping of lifetimes as a small Zeta being or as a Pleiadian being or whatever. But she has the ability, and I can really believe it, to tell by looking at and talking with a person the kind of ET lineage that person has had. Now that, I think, is a wonderful, unique, remarkable ability. And all of these hybrids have some kind of a specialty like that, some very special ability that maybe the others don't particularly have. So we may have more hybrids living among us than we realize, because they look and have learned to act fully human. And I have, since working with these hybrids for the book, I have met quite a number of other people, probably another 15 or 20 people, who are really quite convinced on their own that they are hybrids. And when I have worked with them, that is, regressed them to certain experiences, in many of those cases, it turns out that, yes, indeed, that is true. They are hybrids. And it turns out that all of these particular people who are hybrids, they too are doing wonderful missions here on Earth to raise the consciousness of humanity. Many of these hybrids talk about the process of ascension, that the whole Earth will eventually be ascending into a higher dimension. Usually they mention the 5th dimension from where we are in the 4th dimension. And they also realize that that the process of ascension of the earth includes the ascension of all of us human beings. And it may be that some human beings will be ascending to the next dimension, and many humans will not be ascending. In other words, the ones who are not ascending will be just kind of slugging along with the same old grievances, the same old difficulties, the same old lower consciousness, shall we say. And the ones who are ascending are going to be living life that looks like Earth, but is really in a higher, finer vibration. And all the other people there will have ascended into more of a spiritual existence, and yet still physical to some extent. It's not like dying and then being in the spirit realm, somewhere sort of in between that idea. So they're very much about raising our consciousness, helping us to evolve, and helping us to be ready for the process of ascension. Heaven knows when that will happen. Maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe some people will ascend during our lifetime. I don't think we really know for sure. Depends on how much we develop, how much more conscious and spiritual we become. They also, the extraterrestrial beings who have contributed their DNA to us as hybrids, they want to see humanity to evolve enough to be part of the great galactic federation out there in space. There are many, many species from many different planets that belong to this big federation, something like the United Nations, with representatives from many, many different countries. In this case, it's representatives from many different planets and many different species. They would like to see humanity evolve enough to be ready to be part of that federation. You see, from their point of view, they look at us as pretty backward, pretty retrograde as a human species, and yet they have a lot of love and caring for us. So they see things like our murders, our wars, our destructiveness, our meanness, our greed, our competition, our, really treating each other badly, the abuses that we inflict on other humans. Some people much more than others. Some people, they see, do not do these things at all and are really appalled by them. And yet there are an awful lot of humans as we
think they're going to love it, Tate. Mr. Greg, what brings you up to this?
So they really would like to see us upgrade and improve. And that's what the hybrids are here for. Now, I hasten to say that there's another whole point of view which you may very well have heard about. That is a point of view put forth mainly by David Jacobs. He was an assistant professor of history back in Virginia at a university. And I've known him over the years. We always argue about the hybrids. But anyway, the people who have come to him for regressions, which is how he has found out about hybrids, they've all been people who have had quite negative experiences with those particular ETs. And they're convinced that those ETs have created hybrid beings enough generations that Some of them are human enough to live here on Earth, to actually pass for human beings. So that's a really different category than the ones I have been talking about. And those humans, according to Dr. Jacobs, are here, in his point of view, to infiltrate into humanity and eventually take over the world from humanity. Now, I do not agree with that point of view, in that has not come to me in the work that I have done or the people I have known. But I want to mention that maybe there is truth to that. I don't know. I respect David Jacobs very much. I like him. He's a terrific guy. But I just have not had any indication that that kind of hybridization is happening. And he told me once over dinner, he said, Barbara, I wish I could have people coming to me with the positive sense of the hybrids. I wish I had people coming to me who have positive experiences with extraterrestrials, because that just has not happened in his regression practice. But it does happen in mine, that so many people who've been troubled or mystified, even traumatized in many cases, about unusual beings coming into their homes and taking them away and leaving implants in them and markings on their bodies and so forth, that so many of those people who've been totally frightened and turned off about the whole thing do actually find out in regressions that not only are those experiences extremely interesting and informative, but that they have been very positive. Like so many people, for instance, learned psychic skills of all kinds from these beings. And so many people in their abductions get physically healed of many, many different kinds of physical problems, even the big one, cancer, even heart disease, even kidney failure, or whatever we might have. They seem to have a way to heal it on board the ship. And yet, if a person without regression has little memories, little glimpses, little bits and pieces, little flashes of being on a cold, hard table and these strange beings being around them, which many people find themselves in abductions, they assume that something terrible is happening to them. And indeed, I can see why they would get that impression. But in the regressions, so frequently they find out that whatever examining or poking or probing is going on, they are additionally being healed of something. And in many cases, the extraterrestrials tell the person on a medical table on board the ship that they have something wrong with a certain part of their body, like their liver or their kidney or something, and they may not even know that they have that problem. And they are encouraged to, when home again, to go to their own doctor and ask for that organ of their body to be thoroughly checked, and then, of course, medically fixed. So they warn the person, or they go ahead and heal the person.
Wow, Barbara, I got a question for you,
lots
Barbara.
of other positive things.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, what I want to do, we're going to end at 10 o'clock. So if you are open, I want to have Tiffany to reset the room, and then I want to bring a few people up in the audience that may have a question. And are you willing to take a few?
I certainly am. I welcome them.
Okay. And what we'll do, we'll bring a certain number of people up, Tiffany, and then basically from there, we will limit the questions. Please, guys, if y'all got a question or a statement, of course, this is all positivity today, and this is what we do here. But, of course, you may have a question of something that you want to ask her personally that you didn't get out of her conversation. That's great. And then, Barbara, if you can answer them as quickly as you can, that way we'll give everybody a time to ask their questions so we won't run over too late tonight. That fair enough?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay. No, that's fine. Of course, if it takes a long DNA answer, we got to hear it, right? But at the end of the day,
Right.
we just want to give everybody else the time. So, Tiffany, reset the room and then bring some people up.
Absolutely. So, good evening, everybody. You are in the Extraterrestrial Evidence Club. This evening's topic is a discussion with Ms. Barbara Lamb. She's a very much accomplished author, as well as a hypnotherapist and regression therapist. She is sharing with us this evening hybrid disclosure and her experiences with working with people who have had hybrid experiences and who are also claiming to be hybrids themselves. And that's what she's just discussed with us. And so I'm going to start pulling people up. If you could just really quick, before you share your very brief question, say, I acknowledge I am being recorded because this evening's conversation is being recorded.
And before y'all get started, I have another person in the audience. I was trying to see if I can bring Mary up here.
Okay, so it looks like we have Jody. Jody, you're up.
All right, hang on one
Hi,
minute,
this is
Jody. Hang on one second,
Hi.
Jody. 1 second
How
for
are
us, Jody. 1 second.
I'm fine. This is fun. I love sharing about this.
Okay, if you guys give me 1 minute, I just want to, let's see what we're doing here. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to, how many more people we have there, Tiffany? That way we can bring them up and turn these hands off.
Rod, could I say something first before
Sure.
we go to Jody? Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm afraid I'll forget later. You mentioned that I'm an author and I've done 3 books. Well, now a wonderful woman named Mary Edwards and I have gotten together and we have composed a book for children about children's extraterrestrial experiences. And that book has just gone to the publisher. They may be printing it right this minute for all I know. And so I just wanted you to be aware because I don't know of any other book in existence that is for children about children's real extraterrestrial encounters. And all of these encounters, there are about 20 of them, big full-size pictures and captions, and they all came from my knowing children who've had these experiences, and many of them come from regressions of adults, and the regressions took them back to one of those childhood experiences. So you see, these are all based on true accounts. So just want you to know that that's coming very, very soon, available, and it's interesting to adults as well as to children. Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, and I invited Mary up. I was trying to get her up here to. She's in the audience today, so I did.
Oh, she wanted to be. I know.
Yeah, I did an invite. I don't know if she hit the button yet. So, Mary, if you hit it, you have to. And I should have shown her a little bit. This is all new to her, but. All right, so we're going to rapid fire this thing, you guys. We have a lot of people up here, so we will definitely go through everything. Tiffany
Let's
and
go to Jody, because Jody was wanting to ask questions.
Jody, I'm not familiar. Is Jody in the audience or?
Yes.
Okay.
Jody,
I'm
you're
right here.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was someone else. Jody, I'm sorry. I saw you up there.
Hi, Jody. Sorry
All right.
for that.
Yeah, Jody, go ahead and get started. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jody, and I acknowledge this is being recorded. And two very quick questions. One really quick, Barbara, is the contact that you have, the contact number, I don't know, I think I found you on Facebook with is that your office number? Is that current? Can we reach you that way?
You know what? I do not pay attention to my Facebook. It could be an old number, but a better way is to go to my website, which is barbaralamregressions.com. And lamb is LAMB, like the little animal. So Barbara Lamb Regressions.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, you can email me through that. It comes right through to my email. And I think my phone number is on there too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. And pertaining to this forum, which is, thank you, Roderick and Tiffany, always great guests, bringing us knowledge. I have a question about when you are talking with your patients or regressing them about hybrids. And I don't know if this question's ever come up, but there seems to, as you were talking about the friend that you have debates about the hybrids living among us, etc., and he's saying that why isn't everyone bring a positive experience? That is a question. Like with the hybrids, I think that there are so many humans who would volunteer and say, "Hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to do this." Why is there not a story, or why? I mean, you might not know the answer, but has an ET not been able to say, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this?" Okay, and bring you on, and someone share their experience of, "Hey, I volunteered for this hybrid experience. I wanted to, you know what I mean, be a part of integrating humans and ETs into the world." I mean, has that ever been addressed in a?
Well, that's really an excellent question that you have, and I have not covered that at all. So I'm glad you asked it. It seems, from what I can tell from my work, it's been a decision that the person who has extraterrestrial experiences and people who are hybrids, that it's been a decision to do that made by their soul before coming into this lifetime. I don't know if that makes sense, but you see, this has a larger framework to it. And that is that basically every single one of us is an ongoing, continuing soul. And we come into various lifetimes and then die and go back into that spirit realm again. And then when we're getting ready to go into another lifetime, we have a sort of a meeting, a discussion, a planning session. And we decide like where we're going to be born and who are going to be our parents, what culture, what race, etc., and different features about ourselves, who are going to be our parents, who are going to be the important people in our life, in our whole life that we're going to go into. And so we make lots and lots of decisions. And into that planning session come some spirits. We're all spirits at that point. Come some spirits of extraterrestrials. And those extraterrestrials will ask us if in that lifetime, which we're just about to go into, if we will agree to be visited by them and cooperate with them in various ways. And that could include, would you agree to be hybridized by us, be partly us? Or it could include just, would you be willing to have experiences with us extraterrestrials here and there throughout your lifetime? And the point is that the soul agrees. Yes, I'll do that in that lifetime, just like I'll agree to work in the field of finance, and I'll agree to raise children and whatever else they're deciding to do. And so it has been given permission. But just like everything else in our lives that we had decided about as souls before even being conceived and coming into this life, we forget that. We forget all of that stuff that we've decided. And I mean, don't you think it's the rare person whom I've ever heard say, I am doing exactly what my soul decided to do. I think lucky are the people who are doing what their soul decided to do. But we forget all that stuff consciously and start out as newborn babies and go through the whole thing of growing up and finding our way in life. And so it's the same deal that we've given permission originally to being a hybrid.
All right. Now,
yes. So I absolutely
go
believe in that soul contract. And I guess I'm just saying that, everybody's ET message is they want to make us a better place or to wake us up. And I was just thinking that our soul contracts then I guess make it harder on ourselves to have that awakening, because we could easily remember and volunteer.
I know. Yeah, we did volunteer. We were asked, but we volunteered. And like suppose you were horribly abused as a child, as this happens in unfortunately many cases. There's no way that you would ever have the thought, I must have agreed to this. Or as a young child being battered around, you don't even think in terms of having a soul, or that you basically are a soul. And this lifetime is just one chapter, one experience in that whole long existence of being a soul. And it's kind of too bad we don't know that right from our youngest years.
Wow.
And know that there's a good reason why we agreed to certain things, even using the example of abuse.
Okay, Barbara, I need your help. I don't want to be the bad guy and they're going to talk bad about me on social media because I'm cutting off this nice lady, and all this stuff. But we got about 16 people.
Thank you.
So I want to give them all a chance. So I'm going to need your help to help me be a nice guy. So if you can help me be a nice guy, so they don't say, oh, he is. Because I get it. I get messages on Instagram. Y'all let them talk. Let them do this. But I'm trying to moderate as best as I can. You know what I mean? And I get it. They whack me out.
You have a tough job.
I know, right? They whack me out, too.
I'll try to be briefer.
Okay. Now I got you here, the nice lady. It's like, I can't. I have to be delicate. Like, Barbara, please. Okay, Mark you up. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Roderick, Tiffany, Barbara. Thank you very much. And my name is Mark August, and I'm acknowledging that I'm being recorded. Barbara, the question I'd love to ask you as I'm listening to you, you talked about these sculptures that were made. Yeah. How can we see those? Where can we go to see those sculptures?
Oh, okay. I would suggest, now I'm not positive that this will work, but I would suggest going to the website. You might try CynthiaCrawford.com. Now, that used to be her website, and I think that somebody is continuing her work and probably maintaining that website. Or you could look her up on Google. That's another way, Cynthia Crawford. And I think you can find her. I think, as I said, people are carrying on what she was doing.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara.
All right. Thank you.
Good luck. Hope you can hear.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And guys, we will run over just a little bit, just to let you know, because we will let everyone who took the time to come up here and want to ask the question, and Barbara's have taken the time to be here. And this is what we're all about. But we definitely got the hands turned off at this time. So, Jennifer, how are you? And go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I thank you guys so much for hosting this room and the platform, and it's lovely to be able to speak and ask a question to Barbara. I acknowledge that I'm being recorded, and my question is, during any of your regression sessions or throughout your knowledge, are you aware of any ETs assisting people and allowing them and helping them stay alive during a near-death experience? Thank you, I'm complete.
Oh, that is an interesting question. No, I have not been aware of that at all. And of course, if somebody has a near death experience, it implies that they do come back and continue to live. So I don't know if they've had to have any help from ETs about that. They do get told by other spirit beings, I've heard this, that it's not their time to be with them permanently yet, that they have things to do still or things to still learn or develop here on Earth. But I've never heard of an extraterrestrial intervening and doing that.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I've had this experience and there were beings in the room, but I wasn't sure if they were ET or not, so I thought I'd ask. Thank you. I appreciate your attention and time.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you,
interested
Jennifer.
in that. Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for coming up. And guys, if any other speakers or anybody, Barbara herself, resonate with you tonight, you guys definitely just go ahead and follow. Because we always say the currency here is just following, and so that when these people come back or they talk or anything else. So, Leon, you are up, buddy. If we're on some time constraints, but again, everybody's been here patiently, and I appreciate it. Go ahead, Leon.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I acknowledge that's being recorded. I'm just going to ask the questions from like last week when I was here last Thursday about the hybrid. My question is like, what age do they actually stay here on Earth before they get moved somewhere, either where they're getting moved or what do they do with them? And as far as what their appearance look like, if there's 50-50, what do they look like on the hybrid? And if they're being moved at an age, does the father or the mother human actually meet them before they go somewhere? That's my question.
Okay, well, going back to what I was saying at the beginning, the hybrids who are 50-50, ET 50, human 50, they are not able to come and live on Earth. So they do not get moved here or get moved anywhere. Their biological systems would not be able to withstand our atmosphere, our density, our viruses, our bacteria. So those 50-50 hybrids just continue to live where they're born. In other words, on the craft, on the ship. And it's the other hybrids who do live here, the ones who are mostly human but have had the ET genetics added to them, usually as they are formed into an embryo or during the mother's womb. Now, one hybrid, I forgot to mention this, one of them was age 6 before her extraterrestrials gave her the injection of their DNA, and she became hybridized. But all of them, it happened before they were actually physically born.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, great question, Leon, and everything. So, Barbara, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
we're gonna go to Adam. Adam, go ahead, buddy.
Good evening, everyone. I acknowledge that I'm being recorded, and just wanted to thank you all for hosting this room. Barbara, the question I have for you is kind of personal, and I'm just wondering if you have any experience seeing this in a patient or a client. But I have these scars on my arms. They're identical on each side of my arm, and they're these tiny incision marks right near my elbows on the top side of my forearms, and I have no recollection of where they come from. My parents don't either. And I'm just wondering if you've ever seen anything like that.
I've seen straight line white scars on two people, and it was on their inner forearm, right kind of in the middle range of the inner forearm. Now, the woman I saw that on, it was about 2 inches long, and it looked pure white, like a scar that had healed up white. And then her husband found that he had an identical mark on the same place, but on his left inner forearm. But yours is on the outside. And is it white or some other color? Is it more like pinprick marks?
No, it looks like a scalpel incision mark.
Oh yeah.
On both sides, but
okay.
they're identical on both of my arms.
Okay.
And they're basically flesh colored. They don't really stand out.
Okay, we call those scoop marks. Now, what we think that is that the ETs come and they scoop out a bit of your flesh and take it, and then they use that flesh to surround a little tiny object, which we call an implant. And they put that on another occasion. They take the person and they surgically insert that implant into that person's body, not necessarily in the same place that the scoop mark came from, but someplace in that person's body. And because it has that flesh around it from the scoop mark, when the implant is put in the same person, that person's body will not reject the implant, which of course is a foreign object, because it's surrounded by its own flesh. It's really quite a brilliant system, I think. Do you sense that you have anywhere in you an implant, like a little tiny spot that moves, or have you ever seen like a little dot in an X-ray?
I haven't. I don't think I've focused on it enough, but I'm going to start being more mindful of that in my body and see if I can identify that. But you mentioned your children's book, and when I was about 10, I was out in my backyard camping, and there was a UFO that appeared in the sky. So I don't remember being taken or anything like that, but these marks seem abnormal to me.
Yes, they do sound abnormal. They sound abnormal for a regular person, but they sound very normal for the extraterrestrial activity, because many people who experience these encounters do actually have a little implant. Now, what it would feel like if you wanted to kind of check your body out, it might feel like a little bump that when you put your finger on it and move it around, it moves a little tiny bit. And it would be about the size of a BB in there. But it could be at a place where you've never noticed it before, or it could be just a little bump. I mean, we all have little irregularities in our skin, and you may wonder about it and let it go. But it's the scoop marks, as far as I know, always seem to relate to being put around the implants.
I see. And so you're saying it could be in a different part of my body than in my arm?
Yes, it
right?
could. Yeah, it probably wouldn't be in the scoop mark area, because it's already indented a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that insight. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. I wish you well in checking that out.
All right. That was great.
Yeah.
That was great. And Barbara, thank you. You're doing so well. And like I said, we're going to get to everybody. So now next we have Lysandra, if I pronounced that correct.
And yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. And also I looked at your profile and I look at everybody's, just like you know. I'm just interested in how the heck did you get all of that stuff? You'd have to DM me on that later. But anyway, you
Okay.
guys, yeah, go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll move to Josh, and then Scotty and Leanne, and we got plenty more after that. So go ahead.
Well, my name is Lysandra, as you properly pronounced it, and I acknowledge that I'm being recorded. Barbara, I feel like you totally explained my entire existence within this realm. So it was
Wow.
quite natural I had to come up. So right now, I do fully identify as an indigenous spiritual shaman, but I was chosen to be such, and it took me about a decade to fully walk into my beingness while I was here. But I will say through meditation and my spirit guides telling me to relinquish more fear, that it was made known to me my star system as being Pleiadian. I would see three dots when I would meditate and not know what those were, but they kept telling me I need to lose more fear. And as I did, they finally revealed to me that that is kind of like the one of my origins, because I am an ancient soul, as it has been revealed to me. I'm an Akashic Records reader, so quite naturally, I've had a chance to glean into some of my past lives, and also have been in the room with the Galactic Federation, and they have expressed to me what my role is right now. And I am a healer. I run energy through my hands, and I have an Rh negative blood type component, which I was always curious about. So I love that you touched on that. So I'm just refreshed right now that these conversations are becoming like normalized.
Yes.
Uh, and I'm an empathic, clairvoyant, claircognizant who has known that she was different since the age of 5 and have never felt at home on this planet. So that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to discuss with you. And I thank you for your knowledge base.
Well, I really appreciate your sharing all that. My goodness. Yeah, it sounds like you really have some magnificent connections, shall we say, and influences. Good for you. It's wonderful that you're doing that healing work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. We seem to bring the best out of people here. And you know what? That's just our goal. And I appreciate each and every one of you that comes up and actually are comfortable that we have created that space where you can share, feel comfortable, be around other people that have shared things. And this is how we're going to grow this. And definitely every week, I want you to, share our rooms, ping people, grow it. My goal and dream is to have this be large on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I think we may add a Sunday night, and have everybody participating, because I think it's important. Yeah, we're going to talk about UFOs. Yes, we're going to talk about all the elements, but it's all about you, people in the audience, that's making this cool. And then, of course, with Barbara and the people who's here. And Barbara, I'm definitely going to plan to have you back for crop circles, but we're going to continue on tonight because that's my favorite topic. And
Okay.
but we got about 10 more, I think, and or 7 or 8, and so we'll continue. So Josh, you're up.
Hi, I'm Josh. I acknowledge I'm being recorded. Barbara, do any of these people have DNA anomalies that you're talking about?
Well, we were doing a project for a while, or trying to do one, to get them genetically tested, but we didn't really continue it, because with we used 2 or 3 different the testing agencies, and they would focus on, like one of them focused on where her human ancestry came from. You've got 80% coming from Romania, 20% from England, so forth. I mean, it had nothing to do with our subject at all. And then another couple of testing agencies, just said, oh, well, you've got like 20% unknown DNA, or and of course, when you really think about it, unless they admit that they have an extraterrestrial body there and can compare our DNA with the extraterrestrials' DNA, I mean, what could they say that could be possibly meaningful here? So, in other words, we haven't been able to prove through genetic testing that these people are hybrids. But I mean, the best we've come up is that they have a certain percentage of unknown DNA, but then we all do have a certain percentage of unknown DNA. So we kind of gave up on that. Besides that, 6 of my 8 hybrids written about in Meet the Hybrids, 6 of them, we all had lunch together one day at a conference, and the question came up, and one of them pointed out that she refused to have genetic testing because she had learned that every genetic testing lab is mandated to report what they find out to a particular agency of our government. And she didn't want herself to be snooped into by this agency of the government. And when the others heard that, they said, yeah, I've been wondering about that. If that's really true, no, I don't want genetic testing either. So I've met subsequent hybrids, say that they would be willing to be tested, and we did test them. But, nothing really came of it that had any meaning at all. It's sort of too bad. A lot of people want proof, and a lot of people won't believe there's anything like ET human hybrids, unless they get what they consider scientific proof. But I really don't know how we're going to get that.
All right. Great question, Josh and Barbara, as always. Just a phenomenal insight on what we're doing. So now we have Scotty. You up. Go ahead.
Aloha, this is Scotty. I acknowledge I am being recorded. Thank you for the room. Tiffany, thank you for bringing me up. Roderick, I'm a big fan of the club. Barbara, thank you for coming in here. I have two questions. The second question is a yes or no, so it's really quick. The first question is, you were talking about how the purpose is of some of this is to help with the ascension of humankind.
Yes.
And then as souls, we agree to come in here. Some agree to be taken and become hybrids before they enter the human form. So, I come from, I'm a student of the occult for over 40 years. I grew up with a lot of this information, so I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the things you said here. But I also come from the school of self-mastery. So we're here, we have many different incarnations, and we repeat the lessons until we learn them, and then move on and on and on. And then at some point, we, like the ascended masters, whether it's Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha, they ascend back to where souls reside, which is not in the human form.
Right.
So my question is so how are they? If that is the case, so if my school of thought is correct, why do we need the hybrids or aliens to help us ascend? And then I do have a yes or no question after you're done. So thank you so much.
Well, we are not ascending on our own. So it seems like we do need help or encouragement, certainly, in doing that. It's wonderful that you are spiritually attuned and connected as you are, but many people are not. They don't know about that sort of thing, or they're not drawn to it as you are, and so those masters whom you refer to, whom I respect and love dearly, they are not doing it enough themselves for the great unwashed awful phrase, but those people who don't think in these terms at all and don't even know that there are these great ascended masters, don't even know that there are extraterrestrials. I mean, there must be millions of people like this. So anyway, it seems like we are needing some sort of outer encouragement. Now, the extraterrestrials cannot make us ascend. They cannot do things for us, but they can encourage us to raise our own consciousness and to ascend. And that would be true of the great masters you're talking about as well. They cannot do that for us, but they can inspire us and encourage us, those who listen to them, to raise our consciousness and to ascend. Does that make any sense at all to you?
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you so much for your time. And then I have a yes or no question, and I'll try and reach out to you also. But I would love to interview you to reach a different base from a spiritual perspective. So I'll try and reach out to you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you're open to it, I would love to do that. It would be here on Clubhouse as well, and of course Roderick and Tiffany.
Too late.
Okay.
Well,
Roderick, you beat me to it.
Yeah, but just hit me on the back end, Barbara. I'll get you guys in contact.
Thank you, Roderick. I appreciate you guys so much. Aloha, and Barbara, thank you.
Thank you, Scotty.
All right, so. And, Barbara, I know you're a nice lady. You'll talk with these people. There's none of them. Okay, so Leanne, is that right? Let's go.
Yes. You're getting used to saying my name.
Say my name.
Say my name. Yep, I feel you. All right, my name is Leanne, and I acknowledge that I am being recorded. Good evening, everybody. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
Hi, fine.
My question for you. I am a 24/7 caregiver for my 97-year-old mom who travels a lot. What I guess modern doctoring would call hallucinating all the time. But I see it differently, as you might, as you might also, and as you might gather after my display in Alan's Zoom room. My question for you is, when she's talking to me and saying things like, they're asking me where I want to go, and I can't make up my mind. And they showed me a place where everybody's a hermaphrodite, but I don't think I want to go there. I think she's lingering in her container, but already at the point where they're talking to her. She talks about having to get to class when she's at the breakfast table. Get me back to my green room and in my bed so I can go to class. Like, she's saying all the things that are in all the books. But she's doing it, like, here in her container, not after she's left it. What is that about? Have you run into that before?
Well,
that's my question.
Yeah, it sounds like more likely that she's being talked to by spirit beings in the spirit realm that she's going to go to, where we certainly can learn and grow and develop, not the way that we do physically here on Earth, but there is that whole spirit realm, which has vast opportunities for learning. And so that's my impression, that she's being talked to in her own mind, but it may be really happening from beings who are in the realm that she's going to be going to when she leaves her physical body. Now, it's not that extraterrestrials can't do that. I think they can. But, I think she's correct in this sense of being hermaphrodite, because as a soul, we're not male or female. And some of the lifetimes that we come into, we choose to come in as a male. And other lifetimes we choose to come in to Earth as a female. So that must mean, if we can do either, that as a soul, we are without gender. We are hermaphrodite.
Yes.
So I still think, considering that particular phrase, that it's most likely other spirits who are waiting for her to come over and letting her know that there's a lot of learning. Maybe she's already getting it now in her being asleep state. Yeah, I would think it would be that rather than extraterrestrials, but I don't know. I just...
The only thing I can tell you is that this morning at breakfast, she said, well, she this and she that, and she keeps this. And I said, who's she? And I said, if she is mom, then who are you? She says, I'm the being that flies above. I said, oh, okay. So she has conversations seemingly with herself, like what, walking down Venice. Right. So she's definitely interacting with others, but she'll describe beings that, who's that in the room? What does it look like? It's got very long, skinny, tube-like legs. It's gray. It's got a large head, but it's got a veil. It's not showing me. It's okay. So I don't, it could be both.
Yeah,
I guess.
It sounds like it is both. The spirits communicating with her and other beings, extraterrestrial type, coming sometimes. Maybe they sort of alternate. Now, I'm very fascinated about her, that sense of flying over herself. She may very well be having out-of-body experiences.
Or lucid dreaming.
Yeah, that's a possibility too. But I'm thinking with the flying over, she's looking down at herself, but from a different perspective. And it may be kind of like a practice that she's going in and out of her body now. That's a practice for when she leaves permanently, with what we call dying, and leaves this body forever.
Right. She's just leaving a container. Her energy is doing something else. It recycles. So
yeah. Anyway, I think that's...
Thank you.
Fascinating, Leanne. I hope you kind of...
I'm going to come find you, and I'm going to send you some cheddar, and we're going to have a session.
All
Good.
All right. So, yeah,
Great.
and, I'm sure people want to know, if real quickly, Barbara, is there a particular fee that you charge for regression, or do you just do a case by case? We don't have to mention prices here unless it's something set, that you do.
Yeah,
it's on her website.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's just a standard fee, no matter what the subject matter is, $250 for a 3-hour session. And usually it goes over 3 hours, but it's the same fee.
Okay, great. All right. So for those of you want to know, you can contact her and she can do that for you as well. And I want to appreciate everybody being here. We've got a few more people that's on stage that we're going to have them to ask their questions. Also, guys, if you have an opportunity, I can't tell you all of the stuff that we're recording, things that we're putting together for the YouTube channel, Extraterrestrial Evidence. And then there's some big things coming in the future. And I would love for you to take the time to subscribe to the channel. It's new, but we are going to be loading a lot of content up there. And I would love to have this community support if you could do that. For those of you who just hopped in late, we will have this recording on our podcast in about 3 to 4 days. So you're welcome to go there and re-listen to it, share it as well. But in the meantime, Anu, you are up. Let's go, buddy.
Hi, this is Honor. I acknowledge that I'm being recorded, and I want to thank you, Roderick and Tiffany, for organizing this awesome room and give us a chance to listen to Barbara's awesome work. Hi, Barbara. I have 2 questions. One is, it's a personal experience told by a friend. He didn't know that he had abduction experience, and he was feeling really, really sick. And the doctors decided to have a surgery on him. And during the surgery, what he said is ETs intervened. They hypnotized the doctors, and they didn't allow doctors to operate on that person's body because they telepathically gave him the message that this is about your frequency. That's why we intervened, and the doctor's work is going to hurt you, so we cannot allow this. And after the surgery, doctors do not remember anything. Have you had anything, a story, or heard anything like this from your abductee interviews?
Well, not exactly, but I think that's wonderful that the ETs tried to stop that. Apparently, the surgery did happen. Is that right? The
Yeah.
doctor went ahead.
During the surgery, they intervened and hypnotized the doctors, and they didn't allow doctors to touch the body.
Oh, I mean, they had to open the body, but then they didn't allow the surgeons to touch it?
Yeah, and the surgeons basically given some memory in there, and they don't remember anything about how the surgery went. And they said, well, it's weird, but like I think the doctor said that everything went all right. We couldn't find anything, but they didn't remember the surgery. That's what he said.
Well, I think that's magnificent. And I know that some of the extraterrestrials do that amazing sort of thing. They know so much about our bodies. They've studied them enough. And yeah, well, I've known of many cases. Your case reminds me of this. I know of many situations when a person was diagnosed with something here by a human doctor, and they were going to go into surgery, and they had a date set. And then in the meantime, they were taken by the extraterrestrials, and the extraterrestrials healed whatever was wrong, healed it up completely. And then when they went in for their next checkup, when the person went for the next checkup, they found, oh, you don't have that problem anymore. I mean, I personally know of quite a number of cases like that. So they do intervene, but I think your case that you're mentioning is fascinating about wiping out the memory of the doctors about what they did or didn't do during the surgery. That's great. But that's another example of how some of these extraterrestrials have tremendous caring for us and tremendous abilities to intervene and to help in their own way. That's great. I love hearing about that.
And a quick second question. Dr. Roger Lear, I'm sure.
Yeah,
May he rest in peace.
yeah,
And in one of his surgeries, he was trying to take the implant out of the body, and the implant actually was going away from the device that he's using to scoop it out.
yes.
And finally they did. And he said that in a podcast just before his death, the implant was giving some radio frequencies that they're trying to analyze which frequency it is. And obviously the implant is reporting what's going on in the body. Have you everything heard from your abductees?
Yes, well, I happened to be there at Dr. Lear's office. It actually wasn't his office. It was another doctor's office for one of those. I went to 2 of those different surgery afternoons when they were removing implants. And this particular one, I think you're talking about, might be the one that was in the ear of Whitley Strieber.
Exactly.
Yeah, well-known experiencer. And it flashed red, kind of like red hot, almost like a little neon light shining out from the inside of his earlobe. And it was moving. Yeah, I was there. We were watching it. And so they finally gave up on it because it kept moving. And that implant still, to this day, does move once in a while and flashes red in Whitley's ear, in his earlobes, right out there for anybody to see, anybody who's nearby.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm so glad, Barbara, you're here tonight. And, I'm smiling because we're creating something great here. And I just love it. I love the participation of our audience and the great questions and just everything else. And we will continue. And I failed to mention the name of that YouTube channel is Extraterrestrial Evidence. And you can kind of YouTube it, put my name, Roderick Martin, because it's still new. So it'll have to come up with all those keywords, but definitely give us a follow. All right. So we have, is it FIA, or how do I pronounce that right?
Hi, it's Faye.
Okay, Faye. All right. Glad to have you here. If you go ahead, it's your time.
All right, thank you, Roderick, and thanks, Tiffany. I'm very new to this platform, but very grateful and overwhelmed that I found a group of people who share very similar interests. Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
So I have just a brief personal experience that's going to lead into the question that I have for you. So just rather recently, I stumbled across the workings of Dolores Cannon and was very intrigued to have a regression session through just a practitioner. And prior to that, I had noticed that my daughter, who at the time was 2, she's 3 now, she had 3 markings in the shape of a triangle in her arm, on her arm. And I was like, where did this come from? Like, how did you hurt you? Like, what happened? So anyways, once I had this regression session, it was revealed to me that I do have a cosmic family and that my daughter, in fact, is my sister who was sent here to help me for my mission. And pretty much the question that I had was, I asked about her arm for the session, and I was told that she was taken aboard a craft, and they just wanted to make sure her body was sustainable to pretty much survive the mission here to help me, because she's had some challenges early on with being here. So I just wanted to know, do you have had any sessions where you learned of maybe like a child who was abducted, how can I say this? I'm trying to find the right way to articulate this question, but a child who was brought here, or a soul, I guess, that was brought here and then taken aboard a craft just to make sure the body is sustainable to be here?
Oh, yes. It's very, very common that even a newborn, I know of several cases of a newborn, day 1 or day 2 of life, taken and checked by them. And that's a very interesting situation because the newborn is usually most of the time in the nursery for that first day or so. And, maybe in an incubator, or at least very carefully taken care of. And there's always a nursing staff in that nursery room. But the beings will come and switch off, that is, make unconscious whoever the staff person is in the nursery, and they take the infant and return the infant a bit later. And when they take the infant, they usually are checking that baby and all of the baby's systems to make sure everything's okay, or to fix anything that might not be quite okay. And then they return the baby to the nursery. And after they leave, then the person who's been on the staff there in the nursery will sort of come to, as if waking up from a nap. And that happens quite frequently, and it happens at all of the ages of young childhood as well, that children maybe once a year or so very typically are taken and medically checked. It's kind of like being checked by a doctor here, but there's some other methods that they use for checking different parts of our body systems. Yeah, and there's a great interest when there's one human child who's connected with those beings. That interest remains with those beings and that child as the child grows up and the rest of that person's life. It's really a lifelong relationship, which the human might or might not know about.
Wow, that is
Thank
amazing.
you so much. Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. I will definitely be reaching out to you, Barbara. I would like to learn a little bit more about my cosmic family and just to get some more info about it. Thank you all so much.
Sure.
All right. Appreciate you guys coming up. And that was just great. I mean, I'm learning so much tonight. I'm sure a lot of other people are, and everything else. And so I hope everybody's going to be excited about crop circles like I am, and all the things that's going to deal with that. So we got a couple more people. I think we got Linda, Fred, and Experience. I think Alan is out. today. He's in a meeting, but he's here listening. But, definitely, guys, Alan has a new book out called Making Contact, Preparing for the Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. We definitely want to support that. It's going to be coming out May, I'm sorry. And so we definitely want to help him become a bestseller. And so we're going to work on that day when it comes to all of us. But in the meantime, Barbara, we got a couple more people left. And are you okay?
Yes, fine.
All right. So, Linda, you are up. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Roderick and Tiffany, for putting together this room. Barbara, it's a pleasure listening to you once again. I heard you speak last week, and also I'm aware I'm being recorded. I had a question about the wand that you were mentioning. I kind of tried to PTR it, but it comes out a little too small. I was just wondering if, like, a sketch of, like, does it, the wand kind of resemble something like a Native American flute wand, or the one that I keep seeing has like a dog's head or an Anubis head on the top of it. So I'm just wondering, I know that I have a tendency to kind of like walk between many dimensions and worlds, so I'm not sure if it's if that's the wand you're speaking of, or if this is like a mediumship type of thing where it's Native American Indians.
Now you're talking about a wand, W-A-N-D?
Yeah, you had mentioned that a lot of people have mentioned that they were carrying a wand. The extraterrestrials were carrying a wand.
Yes, well, sometimes quite a bit that is reported. And sometimes they will notice the wand when the beings are right there in the room, the person's bedroom, if the visit happens at night. And sometimes the report is, or the wand is noticed when they're on the ship. And it seems to these people, from what I've heard so far, is that the wand has to do with when they're in the room, to making the person unable to move, and very soon for the person to not be in consciousness. And the wand may also help a sleeping partner, if there is one, to be deeply, deeply, deeply asleep, which we call being switched off, like switched out of conscious awareness, switched out of being able to be awakened. And so then the beings can take the person very harmlessly and easily, safely levitate the person from the bed and float them out through the wall and so forth, up through a beam of light and onto the ship. And then on the ship, sometimes people have seen a being carrying this long, thin wand. I've never heard it described as having like a carved head on it. I think that when you refer to that, that is something else, but not necessarily extraterrestrial. The ones I've heard described by people are like a long, thin tube, almost like a telescope, except simpler and thinner. And
or something
so
like
I think that what you're referring to is more like a Native American staff, like a rod with a carving on the end. Which is that correct?
Well, yeah, that's what I was. My question was like, did people draw them out, and did they say what they looked like, and all that kind of thing? I was just wondering what that.
Yeah, well, yeah, they do sometimes, and so far, what I've seen, it's all been a very plain looking, more than anything, like a long, thin, very thin flashlight, or like a tube, a black tube, maybe slightly wider at one end. But I know that Native Americans and shaman in particular do carry rods or staffs with a carving, on one end. One end goes, hits the ground, and the other one is for holding, and that very often has a carving of an animal being, like a totem, or a bird being, totem, or maybe even a person carving of a head of a person. But I think that's quite separate from what I know from the extraterrestrial experiences.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. And you did answer a lot of my other questions through other people's questions. So that was really
okay.
All right.
Good.
Appreciate you, Linda, for coming up. Barbara,
appreciate you.
I got a question for you, and we're just going to pretend this is me and you here and nobody's listening, but you can answer it. I want to do something very special. Can we do a live regression? If I pay for it and we pick somebody in the audience who DM me, say they want to do a regression, maybe, financially they can't, but they want to know, and I'll pay for it. Can we do it live? Is that something we can do here live? Is it possible? If everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will agree. I think that would be a very interesting thing to do. I know that I've done plenty on Zoom and on Skype and even on FaceTime.
Okay.
And one time, none of that technology worked. And the woman from way far away in another state, she really wanted that regression. We were trying to get the technology to work. And so we just did it on the telephone.
Okay.
Yeah, she was in Texas.
Yeah, and we might do that. We might do it live on YouTube too. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
YouTube would be even better, but because the visual is nice.
Okay. Okay.
I like to see the person whom I'm regressing because I like to see what their facial expressions are as we're going through the regression. And I'd also like to see what their breathing is like. So if I see most of their torso, like from mid-torso on up, that helps too, to see how they're doing. I want them to do well, during the regression. And the breathing is a very good indication. So we would not be able to do that if we do this Clubhouse format, but do you think we could do it on YouTube?
Yeah, we can air the audio here simultaneously as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can actually, right now, let's say we were talking, we were doing the regression. People could be here on Clubhouse, and then they can also open their phone as well, and then they can be looking at YouTube Live. So I think we can arrange that. Now, what I'm going to do is allow someone. We got a lot of people in this audience. You DM me or Tiffany, and then we're going to and just tell us why you. And then now if you could afford it, don't do it. Don't allow us to pay for it, right? We want to bless someone. But go ahead and DM me, tell me what, the situation, and we will choose. We may do 1 or 2, 3. But if you're a business out there and you want to sponsor that person, there's a Cash App, or you can email me or whatever, and we will let you talk and be the pleasure of the person that helps somebody out here. Or if you want to crowdfund and just put $5 on it, you can, but you don't have to. Just follow us. That's good enough. That's the currency. Whatever it is, we have Cash Apps in our app, and we will give a tracking to the very dollar or where it's going. If we raise enough for 10 people, we will get it done. So,
and just briefly, Roderick, before anybody hits my inbox or your inbox or anything
Okay.
like that,
All right.
I just briefly want to throw this out here that Roderick and my psychology stops at undergrad. So we are not medical professionals, and we cannot offer you medical professional advice. And the session that we're proposing would be put on this semi-public platform. So please do not inbox us anything that you do not want seen or reviewed by Roderick or myself. If you do not want an experience or anything like that to be brought up, if you don't want to be considered to speak on that, please do not email or DM that information. Anything that you want left out, don't tell us. But that's all. I just wanted to throw that out there as a quick disclaimer before we move on to our last two, Fred and Experience.
You see, that's why she's here, part of that behind the scenes and in front team, because, you know, she lassos me in, and boy, I'll tell you, we make a great partnership. I appreciate you, Tiffany, to the end and to the beginning and in the middle. So we will do that.
Sorry, I'm a little bit of a hard line, so sorry.
You know what? That's the match. You know, we have it down packed. You know, and so I have no complaints at all. But again, if anyone out there want us to say things like, this regression is sponsored by such and such, you out there in the audience, your business, and then we let you tell about your business and why you're helping this person, why you believe this is important, and where they can find your website or something, you can sponsor that next event. But we're going to do it anyway, but we would love to have your help. Okay, so we have Fred and Experience left. So Fred, you're up, buddy. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Roderick, and thank you, Tiffany. I'm really new at this too. It's like my second time on chat like this, and I also acknowledge that I am being recorded. Barbara, I want to tell you that while you were talking tonight, I almost fell off. I was just really seriously felt, because it was like you knew me. It was like you describing my entire life.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't know this about me, just my closest friends or my family. But when I was very young, and you're supposed to start speaking English, I did not. I refused to speak English, and I had my own language, which I still speak to this day.
Huh.
And I'm a musician. I sing in that language, and people have been healed. But my mother told me several times, before she passed away, for several times, she said, do you remember when I used to come outside? I was looking for you, and I'd be coming outside, and I couldn't find you, and you were always up in this one tree crying.
Oh.
And she said, I would ask you, why are you crying? And you would always tell me the same answer. I miss my parents. I miss my home. And she would go, we're your parents. And I go, no, you're my caretakers. And she would go, well, where are your parents? And I was always pointing straight up. And then, you know, she said that happened several times. And I also had a teacher. I don't know, I was going to ask you if you ever heard of this, but as a small child, once or twice a week for like 2 to 3 years, I had a teacher come to me always. And I would always know, because I could feel the presence in the room. And I could just see kind of a glimpse of like light coming off the eyes, or I guess I never saw a form, but it was all telepathic. And we would talk. I was never afraid. And that teacher would even, I know it just sounds bizarre, but I was terrified to go to the restroom by myself when I was a little kid. And that teacher would take me to the restroom. And so several times my mother would come and say, Freddie Joe, let's go to the restroom. It's time, you got to go. And I said, already gone. And she said, what do you mean? I said, my teacher took me. And so I just was wondering if you ever heard of things like this, because I'm just so excited, because I still don't know. You were talking about the purposes and all, and that we have these, and I believe I do have this gift, you know, with this language and singing, and I do channel music. I have degrees in music, and it's like I can put my hands on the keyboard, and all of a sudden this music just comes. It just comes from anywhere.
Wow.
Then I'll start singing to it in that language.
So, what a wonderful thing. You know, it's there's a possibility that there are extraterrestrial beings who come for you, and you feel that they're your real family, because some of them are so much more loving. Mm-hmm. They described as unconditionally loving, much more than many people even feel from their wife or their husband or their parents or anything, even if they have loving parents. So many people do describe that feeling that they get with they're extraterrestrial beings who feel like family. Now, I need to say, though, that I think that another real possibility is that a spirit family or spirit one or two will come to you at times with a very, very loving feeling. They're not like a ghost trying to haunt anything, but very, very benevolent, very caring, loving. That would be another possibility as well. So that's one of the many kinds of things I think that a regression could give you more insight about. You know, to go back to one of those experiences when you were a child sitting in the tree crying, and then really relive that in regression and see more about what that was all about.
Yes.
Who that loving family
I would
is.
love that. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, and I always have dreams my whole life, and they come to me in dreams, and they're very vivid and very real. And I'm on ships, or I'm on different planets, or a lot of times the little children will be all around me, and they want to take my hand. And sometimes I'm in classrooms with thousands of people, and things are on like a blackboard-looking thing, flashing faster than you could ever imagine. Yet somehow I'm understanding everything that's flashing up there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just such strange things, and I've always wondered about all this because I don't have anybody to really talk to about it, and that's why I just almost fell over when you start talking about that.
I know. One reason why it's so wonderful that Roderick and Tiffany are doing this Clubhouse so that we can talk about it. And, I want to say that quite a number of people I have known and done regressions with extraterrestrials have been taken again and again and again to a place of learning. And sometimes it looks like a pretty standard classroom, always with a being or two who are teachers. They used to be tall beings, often with a long robe, but sometimes, a more form-fitting suit. And sometimes their place of learning is what looks like a temple, like they go in through the columns into the inner part, and that's their place of learning. Or sometimes it looks like a library that the person is taken to again and again for year after year after year, and that's their place of learning. Sometimes it has a blackboard, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the person finds themselves sitting in a chair that's sort of connected to like an individual table that has a computer-like function on it, and they'll be learning mostly through that computer, and the computer doesn't have printing on it like we would see, but it has moving colors and designs, and somehow they learn a lot through that. And there are extraterrestrials standing around adult ones who function as mentors, kind of to help the person in whatever that learning is.
Now that's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Got a question for you, Fred, and forgive my ignorance on this. Is it possible that you can say something in one of those languages real quick and just kind of tell us the meaning in less than 30 seconds? Can that happen?
Yes, I'll sing you something really fast. Or what do you want, singing or just speaking?
Okay, we got an audience up here. Let's vote. Y'all want him to sing or say? Everybody speak out. What do you want?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, we got one. We got another sing. Any more? We need sing. Say it.
Okay, I'll just speak. I'll just speak it.
No. I'll tell you what. Do both. Speak and then sing real quick. There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Santa hiro no lundro mo fotora matali mo so that's clear to no to. But ana akibihito para to hurro to makabasalia. Si ubara sandali ko Ramantike sarado surite Virmanda casare totorandi Voluto sita abbandona le tali Sarebbe tu sono un trapaliche Voluto su tele indesita te Farò lo trabite te No sarete tu ruti Vikralita, vikrarita, sontore bete sikerveti.
All right, man. That was touching, that really was. We really appreciate your courage, and you're welcome to come here and definitely share some of that with us any time. So we have Experience, and as y'all know, Experience has a crazy big clubhouse here that is Extra Paranoia Society. He's the founder of that club. They have a lot of great conversations there. So if you guys are here, and definitely check out his club, follow it and follow him. And these guys have a lot of deep conversation, but he also take a lot of participation in what we do here, and we just kind of cross-pollinate, and we appreciate each other's and our visions of what we're doing and everything else. And so, but again, Fred, that was just awesome, dude. I'm just letting you know, it's just awesome. And, and I can give you an applause again because I can just do that, and I could just do that, so I appreciate you and everything else. Okay, Experience, you are bringing in the house, the rear, the closing it up, the one, and, go for it.
Thanks, Roderick, and Tiffany and Barbara. I acknowledge I'm being recorded. Thank you guys. Fred, that was super cool. I appreciate you sharing that as well. Barbara, I'm very intrigued by this whole subject, and especially when it comes to regression and people reliving their experiences. So thank you for coming up and shedding some light on this. And from a professional stance, I think it's important to hear these stories. There's a couple of things that you touched on that I've kind of been seeing pop up as a theme over and over. When you touched on past lives and reincarnation, and this is something that's been kind of echoed, I think, in a lot of these talks. That of course we've lived many lives, but then the element that I think is kind of new for me within the last year or so is that we've lived lives on other planets as other kind of beings.
Yeah.
That's very intriguing to me, and something that I definitely plan on delving into further. So thank you for that. My question to you is, during your regressions through the years, of course, there's a ton of different races and different ETs that are out there. And the hybridization or the children that are stemming from these encounters, do you feel like it leans towards one specific race more than another? Meaning, of course, you have the Greys, and then you have Pleiadians, and there's all these different kinds of races out there that have interacted with us. But in maybe like a tally or a count or just a description of the different beings that are out there, is there one that's more prevalent to have more of a hybridization family out there more than the other? That's my question.
Okay, well, the gray aliens, the Zeta Reticuli, small gray aliens, have been very involved with the hybrid program, but the offspring, the actual hybrids, as far as I know, tend to remain living on the ship because they're not human enough to be here. But there are other species who have done the hybridization of the humans. I've been talking about the second type of hybrids, and those are Pleiadians, and tall white zetas, and mantis beings, and blue Arcturians. These are all experienced by the hybrids I know, and a dolphin-like species that live on a very watery planet. They have skin that's like dolphins, but they look more like, have some of the facial and head features of the gray, little small gray beings, but they're more dolphin-like. They're quite lovely, really. And one woman of the hybrids in this book, Meet the Hybrids, she has had experiences with other types that I had never heard of from anywhere else, such as camelopardians. And a being, I'm forgetting the name now, but the face looks like a blue horse, or a combination of a woman and a horse, if you could possibly imagine that. And then she has a hybrid son, she says, who really looks very, very human, like a very nice looking human boy. The picture that she had an artist draw of him is a very attractive human looking boy. It's a little bit different in the eyes, but not too much. But those are some of the main species. And I must add, reptilian, that most of the hybrids here on Earth, whom I know, have some reptilian in them. And some of them actually, on occasion, will morph into their full reptilian form, which is a very wonderful experience for them, because, well, we hear a lot of very negative things about reptilians for the most part, but there are, I'm convinced, several different species which we would classify as reptilians. And some of them are very, very positive and wonderful and even loving. So these hybrids I know who have reptilian in them, it's a very nice type of reptilian, and they're very happy to have that, and they're very, very proud when they can morph into their reptilian form for a brief period of time. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Barbara. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. I appreciate it, experience, and everyone else. And so, guys, that was the last one. But I got a few announcements we'll make, so stick around real quick, and then we'll be getting out of here and, letting every one of you get some sleep. And of course, there's things to come here. But Barbara, I really first want to appreciate you for being here and all that you do. And like I said, I can't wait. You and I will schedule in a few weeks as far as the crop circles, whether it's just me and you or a bunch of other people, because I think that is just one of my phenomenal things that, and I'm reading your book. Is one of your best?
One of my favorites, too.
Oh, my God. I can't wait to get into the details of that. Another thing, guys, next week, during the week, I'm supposed to be on a Zoom with Craig Composer, and he's the guy that wrote the book, The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, where he has all the pictures of all the different ultimate guides to the grays, reptilians, hybrids and Nordics. And so we're going to have him. I'm going to get him here one night. And so we can definitely do that. In the audience, we have Mary Edwards. If you look down in there, she's there. She's actually, her father worked for NASA. She worked for NASA. Her daughter worked for NASA. She's been part of the hybrid program, actually have hybrid children. So we're going to have her here to speak. She's the co-author, her and Barbara, with the book that Barbara spoke about earlier, which is for kids, The Adventures with E.T. and Friends in Space. So she's, they're going to be here, and we're definitely going to be doing that. And so as I begin to close this out a little bit, just know, guys, that we are doing some great things here. I really enjoy each and every one of you being here. And of course, as always, you don't have to go to bed. Clubhouse is 24/7, 365 plus OT, meaning you can talk all the time and listen all the time. So for that reason, though, Ben and Nick is going to be up next in a little bit as soon as we close out this room. And these guys go hard, they go deep, and anything goes, and it can just go anywhere. So definitely, if you want to hop in the room there. But we did go over tonight, but hopefully we served you. Hopefully it was okay. We want to get bigger, and so we need your help. When we get here Thursdays and Tuesdays, and we're going to add a Sunday pretty soon, share this, because it's a lot of time that goes into scheduling the speakers and the different people on the back end that you don't know, and everybody's here pleasurably, and nobody's getting paid for this. So follow people, that's the currency for that for now. But again, we're going to do some regressions live. So some of you have already been contacting us on the back end. We definitely appreciate that, and we'll be setting those things up. And once again, it's been a plum pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege serving you guys tonight here at Extraterrestrial Evidence. And Tiffany is the greatest admin of all time. And once again, all of you on stage, if you want to say good night and thank our host Barbara tonight, our guest, you can go ahead and do that before we hang up.
Much love to all of you guys.
Absolutely. Good night. And I just want to thank everybody who participated for making sure that you stated your acknowledgement of the recording. That made my job so much easier. So thank you all.
All right. And so go ahead, Scotty, and I'll hit you on the back.
Aloha. Thank you so much.
Tiffany.
All right. So anything else other than that, Scotty, hit me on the back end. And once again, Barbara, I'll call you a little later. I know you'll be up a couple more hours.
Okay.
So we'll talk a little bit.
It's been a great pleasure for me.
Oh my God, we loved you. We love you. And that's the whole thing of, I got to give you your applause too. What am I doing? I'm just off tonight. Hang on one second. Here you go. There we go. And that is for you, Barbara. And all of us in the audience clapping at the same time. It was just kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we appreciate you and love you much. And we will talk to you again. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.